The good news for the Eagles is that the defense had some good moments today. But don't get it twisted. We all know if there's something to complain about, Eagles are going to find it. Oh, the offense didn't do anything. I do think there were some interesting things to take away from this game for as unentertaining as it was on the whole. Chris Franklin covers the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFL for NJ Advanced Media, NJ.com. At C Franklin News is where you give him a follow for all of his coverage. And he joins me right now here on a special edition of Hanging with Hennig following the Eagles-Browns preseason game number 2 for the Birds, heard here on 97.3 ESPN. Chris, welcome in. How you doing today?
Not too bad. But what if the offense was really tough to watch and paint was more entertaining at times to watch dry than that? I don't know. Maybe I'm just kidding now, but yeah, it was interesting. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, part of what was interesting, Chris, and let's start with some of the guys on defense. I thought that today was one of those days where Eagle fans, whether they were listening on the radio with me or they were watching the game or they were at the game, today was one of those days where you got to see exactly why Philadelphia drafted Jahad Campbell in the first round and Andrew Makuba in the second, right, Chris?
Oh, yeah. When you look at the way that Campbell, you saw the versatility. In fact, he was rushing off the edge at times. And he looked pretty decent doing it against this Browns offense. And then we saw when he was able to blitz up the middle and get those stops. And then you look at Makuba. I mean, he's directly involved, the reason why they're able to get their 2 scores. You look at the way he get that interception. And first off, I'll just say the Browns, I don't know what they were doing in that scramble drill because he was able to just cut between them and the 2 receivers were so close. It was like, what's going on? But you saw the instincts of Makuba. He was able to see where it was going and diagnose the play, cut between them. And, he had the athletic ability and the vision to find his way to the end zone after that. And then also to pick up that fumble recovery. So I look at that overall, and you see 2 depth guys there that could really become really valuable pieces there to the point where now I'm going to go to Makuba. To the point now, I'm starting to wonder, do you make him your starting safety now, and then do you roll DeJean if you don't figure out this cornerback 2 situation?
You mentioned about Makuba. I thought that I know Fangio is very big on, I need you to learn the defense. I don't care what you're – but I thought today was the day that Makuba said, hey, look, this might be my first action on the field, but I got the instincts to make up for what I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Sometimes, too, coaches would rather see an aggressive playmaker. I know it's a safety spot, and you don't want that to happen because it's the last line of defense. But a lot of times, if you can't figure out, the assignment or what have you, you just use your athletic ability. You can get by with some of that stuff, and I think you can do that. When it comes to some of those coverage and passing off and what have you, yeah, you can learn that. But I think when you look at the other options that they have on this roster right now, without using DeJean back there per se, on a regular basis, I think he gives you the most versatility and it gives you the most upside to really try to confuse offenses.
You just mentioned about confusing offenses, and that just made me think of something. We saw today that the Eagles' defense did a good job at times of confusing the Browns' offense. What does it say to you that for 2 teams that saw each other all week, that a guy like Fangio and a guy like Jim Schwartz still had something in their bag for a day like today?
Oh, I think a lot of times it's that competitive nature. Even though, we got the practices and wins. We're going to treat some of this stuff like a game. We're going to treat and do some of the stuff like, all right, we're going to throw something that they haven't looked at. Let's see how they adjust to it. And it's a good learning experience for both of these teams. They purposely left some looks out there that they didn't want to see. So you need to teach some of these, especially these younger guys and these depth guys, you need to teach some of these guys to how the game plan at the NFL level. And not only that, be prepared for what the unknowns, because week 1 comes around. If you need to rely on, say, Makuba, if you need to rely on Campbell, sometimes you see the Cowboys may start out with one look, and next you see on tape that they did last year, all of a sudden they throw out something completely different. How fast are they going to adjust to that situation? How fast can they diagnose it? Do they know their base rules of coverage and what have you? So, yeah, you need days like this. And I thought overall for what they did, not only Fangio for teaching guys, Christian Parker, what have you, other guys teaching these guys and getting these guys prepared before some of the players, I won't say all of them because there's some things to be lacking desired, but some of these players were able to rise up and show that they can adapt to that.
Oh, don't worry. We'll get to some of the guys who did not show up today. Chris Franklin from NJ Advanced Media joining us at C Franklin News on X and Instagram, joining us here. Special edition of Hanging with Hennig, bridging you between Eagles preseason game number 2 and Cowboys preseason game number 2 here on 97.3 ESPN. Chris, the other guy that I thought, Makuba, Campbell, they both really showed out. I thought the other thing we took away from this game, at least I did, was, Smile Mondin and Jeremiah Trotter Jr., there's been such a lack of solid, competent linebacker play that, it was cute that they showed Nakobe Dean on the sideline today, but I'm almost starting to wonder, if you look at all these young guys, there's a chance that Nakobe Dean, whenever he's healthy again, Chris, he may be having to share playing time with some of these other guys, because right now, if outside of Zach Baun, if I had to make a depth chart, Chris, from my eyeballs, it's after Zach Baun, it's Campbell, then Trotter Jr., and then Dean is fighting with Smile Mondin and Trotter Jr. for reps.
See, I still put Dean out there. If I was starting there like in regular season, I still put Dean when he's healthy enough to get back there and start playing. I still have him starting because I think a lot of the attention is still going to go on Zach Baun, and offenses are still going to try to maneuver around him and try to put more pressure on that. And then eventually Campbell as well too. You played a rotation there. Mondin, to me, I think his best route to even make this team, and that's even like a look at it, it's tough to say that because they're so deep, is mostly special teams. I just want to see that because I think he's a little too aggressive at times. I think he overruns some of those holes in there when he has a scrape and stuff like that. So and then tackling. So I look at those things. That's what has me questioning if he's going to see significant snaps. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., I thought he'd take a little bit more of a step forward during his preseason, and there's still some things that has to be done. I'd feel more comfortable with him as a special teams / fourth linebacker, because if you're starting your fourth linebacker, you're probably already in trouble to begin with. But I'd rather feel more comfortable with him as a fourth one. But yeah, there's some depth issues beyond that. But I don't think we'll see like beyond them going like 3 linebackers when everybody's up and healthy as well too. And besides, Nakobe Dean's going to need those reps as well too. I think he's also a linchpin. I think when you look at the way that the guys have talked about his ability to know leadership and speaking, you still need a guy on there because you lost a lot of that, and he's still getting a lot of respect, and he's still good diagnosing plays. So I still will put him up there as a 2 when he's healthy enough. I'm still starting him. But I think you see Campbell in a heavy rotation, they start to go exotic looks with those 3.
You just mentioned about the leadership. Yeah, I'm not trying to get rid of Dean and his leadership because it's been documented that, at Georgia, he was the man who ran the locker room down at Georgia. So for a young man to already have those leadership intangibles, he definitely needs a role in this team. I'm just wondering what exactly that role is going to be, just because of the fact that, how Fangio is, Chris. You miss time, you got to earn your time back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think over time they'll work him in a little bit more, because especially that whole thing when he's talking about his kneecap was up to near his thigh and stuff. That's pretty serious stuff, and it takes some time to get back from that. But I think eventually when he's full, I think they would give him the job. Then who knows? Maybe we see like a 3-3-5 look where you got the 3 down linemen. You use either Baun or Campbell off the edge to be that fourth rusher, and then you just have Dean come in there, either using a blitz up the middle, or he goes back into coverage as well too, or cover the flat to curl area. So maybe you start to see stuff like that. But yeah, I think you still rotate those 3 guys, because once you get beyond that, you have some serious question marks, serious ones.
Speaking of leadership, I, after today, have, and again, my eyeballs, Chris, you were covering the team all week, so I'm just telling you what I'm observing. I saw Adoree Jackson talk up his teammates after 2 different plays today, and I saw him be at least better than he was last game. I'm starting to wonder if Adoree Jackson makes this team as a reserve corner, and that the starting corners, like it would be something like Bennett and Mitchell on the outside, and then Jackson would be one of the backups, because it almost seems like he's embracing that idea of like, hey, I'm not going to be a starter for this team, but I can still be a veteran to help these guys.
See, I wouldn't put it past it, because you look there, so I want to say like 2023, I believe it was. You look how many cornerbacks they kept on that roster, and you're looking like, huh? Like, because they didn't want to give up some of those like guys like Eli Ricks, where he was undrafted and he was playing well. So you're looking like, okay, I can see him going back heavy. The thing with me is when I'm looking at Jackson is, are the Eagles want to try? I know it's like $1.3 million or something like that. Are the Eagles want to guarantee that contract? because if he's a vested veteran, if he's on the roster week 1, his contract's guaranteed throughout this year. I know it doesn't sound that much, but every little bit helps, and especially if there's an injury, whatever, you need to pick up a guy, you're going to need every piece of penny, and also you want to try to roll over as much as you can to try to extend some of these guys and help your cap for next year. So I wonder if he's going to make the roster as whole, like if he's going to be on a roster week 1. Maybe they sign him as a practice squad for week 1, and then they try to add him back on week 2 or something like that. I see some elements where you can use him, maybe a dime package, but then also you still have Keely Ringo, and you know how much the draft capital they gave him. You used him in the 4th. I'm on the side of saying maybe they keep Keely Ringo and they cut Adoree Jackson and they go with Ja'Cory Benton to start. Eli Ricks it still has value on this team, but it's getting really tough as well too. I think it's where guys like Perry Nickerson playing your backup nickel and stuff like that. There's a lot of moving parts that are going to have to be made. For me, I still have Adoree Jackson being on the outside looking in.
What is the Mac McWilliams factor in all this? Because he's a guy that I know they've worked out in the nickel. They've worked him on the outside. You know, I thought what I saw from him today was Mac McWilliams, Chris, did something that I don't think anybody other corner can say so far this preseason, Chris, which is he played well enough that didn't throw his way.
Yeah. You're allowed to do that? I thought you were allowed to have to play off like 8 yards and then just allow completions in front of you. Yeah. I think it was one of those things where I think he was in his head too much for most of this preseason. And I think something clicked. And I don't know if it's just getting the extra reps on the outside when during his week preparing for his game, but something just clicked where he just played free. And he looked good. As you saw, it just came naturally. He didn't get in his head too much. He wasn't thinking that. And then you saw that's what you get when you see that there. And I know they're trying more as a nickel, and it helps to be versatile no matter what, as versatile as you possibly can. I like him on that outside and the backup as a backup. And he's one of those guys where you look at, okay, maybe you could go light at another position just to make sure you keep some of these defensive backs in case, say one of them bombs out and you have to put somebody else in, or you just need depth stuff. So I like the progression he's making. I think he can be a player in this league, all pro, not necessarily, but I think he can be a serviceable guy, especially with how deep this team is.
Talking with Chris Franklin from NJ Advanced Media at Steve Franklin News on X and Instagram. Joining me here for a special edition of Hanging with Hennig following Eagles preseason game number 2. Doesn't matter the Eagles lost the game. We're talking about what actually happened on the field here on 97.3 ESPN. Chris, we got to go to the offense because there was some negatives that we have to hit on. And I think the most surprising negative for anyone listening or watching the game, Chris, what happened to the offensive line? What happened to Stoutland U? I felt like there were multiple times that, Sirianni said after the game, Chris, that, we weren't planning not to play Tanner McKee. It was almost like him and the coach staff had a premonition. They needed to get Tanner McKee out of harm's way.
Yeah, you got to keep the Golden Goose happy. You want to get those picks either this year or next year. You don't want to lose that draft asset, and also just to put him in that beating. I mean, the one play that really stands out is the Miles Hidden one where he just got beat clearly off the edge and almost just goes. If you want to look at the definition of a lookout block, that's it. It almost like I don't know, he didn't even yell lookout. He got beat. I wish I saw better body language from him. It's like he just got beat and just turned around and looked, and we saw what happened. Let's that turnover. So I look at that and boy, we talk about, and I can't believe I'm saying stuff like that, but like you look at when back in time, you saw Jack Driscoll, you saw all those other guys, the veteran guys. They had somebody ready to step up and ready to go. Brett Toth, I feel a little more comfortable in that one. Matt Pryor, we knew what he was beforehand in his first stint, and he had that penalty, and there's still some questions with that too. And Lamb's a little. It's just there's not that guy that you feel really comfortable. But maybe one guy, I'll say Toth, but if he comes in at guard or tackle, not at center. I don't like Toth playing center.
Nobody needs to see that ever again.
No, that experiment happened. I think that's what caused Marcus Mariota's struggles early when he was with this team, and now it carried over now. So they need some more pieces, and you can get those guys through waivers, what have you there, but it just seems something's not right with these reserves as is. And I know Jim Schwartz is a heck of a defensive coordinator. He can scheme up some things. This wasn't even truly being schemed up for a regular season game. and you can have all games, but to have the whole entire unit, I think they need to make a few changes to that position. And I add a guy or two and see who's comes available because I'm not liking it at all.
Well, you just mentioned guys who come available. I was saying before you came on, Chris, that like unless there's a guy like Shaq Mason who's willing to take a reserve role, it's not like there's like a ton of dudes out there who can walk in off the street who could add to this team as is. So it's like, are we like is Jeff Stoutland taking these guys back to like the olden days, like put them back in hard Stoutland because Jordan Mailata, I don't know about you, Chris, but some of the videos I've seen, he looked tired this week during practice. Like this heat's taking a lot out of these guys. Like I know they're trying to work these guys hard for a tough schedule, but how much harder can you work them to prepare them for the season?
Yeah, I think if anything, this week was a perfect time to do it, especially when you got the Tampa game and all that stuff, and you have to play in those heat. That heat, this was the perfect week to do it, so they can get used to it instead of just going, all right, let's go in the bubble, let's go light, and just throw them down there, and we know what happens when they go down there. But yeah, I think this is going to be one of those weeks. I would love to be a fly on the wall just to hear at meeting, because Stoutland. You know how passionate, and I'll say passionate, he gets when he sees something that he doesn't like or what have you. And I'll just leave it at that. I think you'll see a sharper. I will say this: I think you'll see a sharper team against the Jets, especially when it comes to that offensive line, because he'll be in their ear about some of those things. Some of them was just mental. If, like I mentioned earlier, if it was the aggressiveness that got him there out of place, I'll tease that. That Hinton one, I keep going back to that Hinton one where he just went olay and looked and didn't even try to run back. Stuff like that was going to make him mad, and you hope those players learn from it because you may need them. And you already have Landon Dickerson dealing with that knee. He's going to be back eventually, but you never know. These guys, Cam Jurgens had that back. You don't want him banged up. You're really thin against that offensive line, so hopefully those guys stay healthy, but you need to get these guys prepared. And I ain't feeling it. Maybe Trigger Keegan. I don't know. It's rough.
It is rough, and I think that leads to the other concern after the game, not just the offensive line today, but I mean, I'm getting deja vu 2019 Eagles with all the drops, Chris. I mean, Terrace Marshall, E.J. Jenkins. I saw Kylan Granson drop a ball. Darius Cooper had a bad day at the office. Like, I thought there was supposed to be a competition for some depth positions here going into this game, and it felt like the only guys who showed up who could catch the ball were Anais Smith and a guy who's not going to make the team. I mean, we all know Taylor Morin is not making this team on the 53-man roster, but he played like he wanted to make the team compared to some of these other guys.
Yeah. And you know what, though? I think another competition that really needs to do, and maybe you look elsewhere, too, I'm not liking the third quarter. Like, to me right now, it has to be Dorian Thompson-Robinson because I'm looking at Kyle McCord. He's still late on some of his throws. Some of the throws when he did have time and settled, it's like he got happy feet because he was so used to seeing pressure that he tried to throw it and it was off. And then when you get that and he finally gets a good pass, the receiver can drop him. It was just all discombobulated. And listen, we know I probably say right now Anais Smith played his way into that fifth receiver role. The only person I could really see maybe try to sneak an extra spot on was Cooper. That's it. And even then, he had the game he had today. So, yeah, a lot of these guys, we'll see a guy or two added to the practice squad. I think can get them through there. But, yeah, a lot of these guys we saw today, today really was like a third preseason game because I think a lot of these guys aren't going to be around wide receiver.
Well, today was a mess. Let's just call it what it is because, we didn't – you just talked about the receivers. Look, Anais Smith, we know he's making the team. We just, what capacity was he making the team? And I think he's established himself as he is, lock it, take it to the bank. He's probably the fourth or fifth receiver on this team. But, Chris, can we talk about the tight end for a minute? Because, Dallas Goedert has missed 4 games. He averages 4 games missed over the last few years. Grant Calcaterra, he has a history of injuries himself. E.J. Jenkins versus Kylan Granson versus Harrison Bryant. I mean, did Harrison Bryant even dress today? I didn't even see him on the field. Jenkins dropped the ball. Kyle Granson dropped the ball. Kyle Granson looked like he didn't know he was going at times. Like, if you're looking for a third tight end behind 2 guys with injury histories, today was a bad, bad day.
Yeah, and that's the day I'd rather have C.J. Uzomah somewhere out there and see if we can get him back. It's that bad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of – There's a lot of depth-wise. If there's one of the things I wish, there are two areas I wish the Eagles did a little bit better on. It was better finding better depth at edge rusher. I thought Azeez Ojulari did show better, but also the backup tight end spot. And think third tight end, how much often are you going to use it? Well, the goal line, you got to use it down around there.
Yep.
And and then short yardage situations, you can try to do push for so many times, but use them in that formation that time. So there is a role, a decent role that you can use with this team, But the thing you look at it, and you're like, they're just not doing it. I'm pretty much out on Bryant. I'm not liking it, and there's a lot of these guys are just they're guys. E.J. Jenkins, the guy who had a really good preseason last year. It just seems like it's not clicking for him this year. If anything, it's just bad, and I don't know what you do about it, because if you're looking for anybody of note, it's not really that much out there. You're not going to spend that much on a third tight end anyway.
No.
But there's all these, you thought some of these younger guys you could step up and develop, because not only just beyond this year, you got Dallas Goedert situation. He's got 1 year left. You want somebody to come in. Probably now, if you really look at it, maybe only Calcaterra, the only tight end that you can see project coming back in 2026, because it's just that bad. So that's his area that this is 1 year, and when Goddard, it's almost like the Swallows of Capistrano returning. Dallas Goedert always seems to get hurt at some point in the season. You need one. You need to find one. And at this point, I feel better if they just grabbed out a veteran, a guy on a veteran minimum as the season progresses, and just use him in that third spot as opposed to one of these young guys that are early on the roster.
Well, right now, just according to Spot Track, here are the free agents available, Chris. You can pick one, okay? I'll give you the names. Gerald Everett, Mercedes Lewis, you mentioned C.J. Uzama, Jeff Swain, and Hayden Hurst are your free agents available on the street.
Hurst is another guy with injury thing. Mercedes Lewis is
he's old.
I'd rather C.J.
He's 41 years old.
Yeah. I'd rather bring back C.J. Uzuma. He knows this. He knows the lay it on land. He knows the offense. You might as well just go back with him. Honestly, he's the best one. He's the one I'd probably say would be the one they would go with, and to me, he'd fit in the best anyway. So it's bad. It's bad for this position.
Well, you can catch the next article about how bad the depth is at the Eagles position at NJ.com by Chris Franklin at C. Franklin News on X and Instagram. And he joined me right here to recap a very bizarre Eagles preseason game number 2, as heard here on 97.3 ESPN. Chris, great stuff. Appreciate you jumping on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and everybody enjoy the rest of the week.